Assalamu alaikum. I am Ahmed Mohamed, the litigation director for the New York chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, the nation's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization. And you are watching CAIR Talk. And of course, I'm broadcasting here out of my living room in Queens, New York. And this program was created to provide regular updates and resources to the New York Muslim community relating to the COVID-19 crisis. Now, I want all of you watching at this moment to move your mouse and go ahead and follow our page so that you can get updates from us on a regular basis so that you don't miss out any of this amazing CAIR Talk conversation in the future. Now, tonight we have a recurring theme here at CAIR Talk, which is the census. We're going to be revisiting that topic because it's extremely important for our community here in New York, for the Muslim community to participate and to be counted. And today we have two amazing guests, both from the mayor's office. We have brother Badr Fuad and sister Fatima Mohammed. Fatima, Badr, please welcome to CAIR Talk. How are you guys doing?
Go ahead, Fatima.
I'm doing good. How are you? Thank you for having us. We appreciate the platform to get to speak about the census. And, you know, we're just trying to survive this crisis like everyone else is. We hope everyone is safe and healthy and everyone is home, hopefully.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Badr Fuad, a Yemeni American. And like brother Ahmed mentioned, I am the cultural liaison for the Bronx with the mayor's office and works with the census. Me and Fatma kind of work citywide, although we are considered to be focused on just Queens and the Bronx, but because we don't have Arabic representatives for Brooklyn and Staten Island, we kind of work with every borough.
So you guys have a very important job then, and a job that has huge responsibility, but if I'm getting this correct, your main focus, brother Badr, is the Bronx, and sister Fatima, you are, where are you focused on? You're in Queens.
I'm focused in Queens, yes.
Okay. All right, so you're in my backyard.
Yes.
That's great. Both of you are needed there, and absolutely you're needed elsewhere in Manhattan, elsewhere in Brooklyn. There's a lot of Muslims, a lot of Arabs in Brooklyn, and so hopefully, you know, there's outreach happening there as well. Before we get to tonight's topic, I want to just kind of check in and see how each of you are doing with the COVID crisis and how well, I guess, what adjustments have you made to kind of adjust your life to fit into the world that we have right now, you know, the world that's kind of centered on social distancing. Sister Fatima, what adjustments have you made?
Well, I'm a homebody, but just having to stay home has been a little, you know, little difficult, but it's been okay. It's been harder to just convince the parents to stay home and not, you know, go visit their sick relatives. So that's been something, but trying to sort of explain to them social distancing and the importance of it has been a bit difficult with these WhatsApp groups, but hopefully I think it's working. I think I've convinced them to stay.
Well, that's good. Well, brother Badr, I know you're an extrovert. You like going out. This has probably been a difficult time for you.
That is actually correct. I am more of a field person. I hate staying at home, but however, you know, I gotta adapt to everything going on. Parents-wise, I come from a bodega owner's family, so you know, majority of my family are still out there in their bodegas, you know, trying to serve the community. However, the awareness has reached to them, you know, in a perfect way where they've been following the social distancing rules in stores. They wouldn't allow more than 6 people in the store at once. So the awareness is there, and alhamdulillah for that.
Alhamdulillah, and we pray that, you know, they are safe and that they stay safe, and you know, your families are all, you know, stay safe and healthy during this time. And obviously, you know, special thanks to you, brother Badr, for your family members who are, you know, essential workers on the front lines, making sure that we still have food at our tables. So thank you. Let's get started with tonight's topic, the census. Why should we care?
For many reasons, of course. One, especially for us as Muslims in this country, we need that representation. We need to prove who we are, and we need to prove that we exist in order for us to get our fair share of the funds that the federal government is allocating for our city. We need representation. We need religious resources for our communities, and many more things. And I'm sure Fatima wants to add to that.
Yeah, so all of what Badr said is extremely important. And I think sort of this pandemic sort of highlights really why we should care about the census. The socioeconomic differences between boroughs is sort of directly related to the funding and how much funding we're getting from the federal government. And as a diaspora, as a group, as Arabs, we have been historically undercounted, and so have many, immigrant minority communities. So it's critical that we are counted so that the federal government knows we exist, so that we could be represented, like Bed said, and we could get the funding we need to sort of be able to cater to our communities and grow our communities stronger.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit, Sister Fatima. You said that, this is a perfect example of why the census is so important. Can you kind of provide some examples on how the federal government is using the census right now, for example, to determine their response?
Yes. So we could take a prime example, hospitals. We have a shortage of hospital beds, and that's because less than 50% of people are counted. Were counted in the census. I hope I'm not wrong, but a percentage of like less than half of people are counted. So the federal government is only accounting for those 50%, and so you have a whole other 50%. So once we're all individually counted and represented, then we could get, more hospital beds, we could get more schools, we could get better equipment. There are a lot of students right now who are struggling because they don't have access to technology, they don't have access to Wi-Fi, and it sort of seems very like unattached or very distant from like the census, but it's directly related because when you have good funding for schools, you're able to equip students with better equipment, better books, better knowledge overall, and it's sort of like a domino effect. So it's directly related.
Okay. And are there other things that the census kind of takes into account?
I wanted to go back to schools before we move on to other situations. I worked in a school last year, and trust me when I tell you the lack of resources in that school were just very depressing. Some of my kids had to either share books or either share laptops throughout the entire day because we didn't have, resources for everyone in that school. Same goes with lunch. Some kids were being charged because of that same situation. If we look directly into how the census affects, our lives, we would realize that it really affects us in every aspect, whether it's, hospitals, schools, roads, services, programs that we need for everyday life, EBT, and all these things. So in order for us to make sure that we get the resources we need for the next 10 years, we really have to count ourselves in. Because in this moment, with how the census operates, I think it's, it's the only fair program going on, where there's no discrimination, where there's no one being left out. So if there is somebody who stops you now from doing the census, it's only yourself, and you're going to be your only enemy in getting your services for the next 10 years.
Yeah, no, I think both of you hit on really important points that I just want to summarize real quick. And that, the very first thing that we're kind of relaying to people is that when we think about funding from the federal government to our housing, to our public education, to our roads, to our hospitals, to our bridges, to our food stamp access, to Social Security, all these things, right, that we think that the government does, that all comes determining how much New York gets, how much New York City receives from the federal government on an annual basis is determined by the census. My understanding is that there's 700 billion with a B, $700 billion every year that the US government sends to the states. And your portion of that $700 billion is determined by the census. So for every person that doesn't get counted, I think on a yearly basis, New York City loses about $1,500, right? And so if you want your neighborhood, I don't want to put anything in either one of your mouths. So this is what I think you're saying. If you want your neighborhood to have better roads, to have better public institutions, better hospitals, better schools, do the census so that the city can get the money from the federal government so they can pay those teachers, so they can buy that iPad that you were talking about, those technologies. So that's really important.
Yeah.
And I think on a personal level for us Muslims, I know organizations have been trying to create these cool programs for us where like we learn our religion and Quran and Islamic literature and things in that matter, but if we do respond to the census and prove that we're here and we have big numbers of the within the Muslim community, then there would be a possibility for us to even get our own Muslim public school where it focuses on our needs and our religious focus.
Yeah, I want to talk about another thing that the census really impacts, and that's representation. Can you, Sister Fatima, kind of get into that a little bit on how is our representation in government reflected by the census?
Yeah, so definitely. I think when we're talking about sort of being seen as or being listened to by politicians and being recognized by politicians, it comes a lot of it comes down to numbers, what groups of people are sort of displaying in large numbers and need to be heard so that you could get their vote. And historically, the Arab community, which is still to this day, unfortunately, being recognized in the census as white, we haven't been heard because we haven't been sort of recognized for who we are. And so that's already an issue. But to answer to your question, Ahmed, we elect representatives based on the number of people that live in a certain area. So the more people, the more representatives we have, the more people are heard. Different groups of people are being heard, even if they're not so big in numbers. And so when we're not being counted, that's less representation, and that's less of our concerns that are very, very crucial to our everyday life, whether it's, like you said, food stamps or schools. Those concerns are not being, had at a higher level because we're not even being represented. So it's so important. Like, I can't stress it enough that we do fill out the census so that we have the representation we deserve.
Sister Fatima, you said something very important, and actually someone just sent me a message asking me, the census doesn't have an Arab check mark right now, as you were saying that, and the answer is the census does not have an Arab check mark. In fact, it's the race question that you're talking about, in that the parenthetical, it explains if you are someone from the Middle East, for example, like Iraq or Lebanon, that you're supposed to check the white mark.
Yeah.
Now, obviously at CAIR-New York, what we have been telling our community members is that when it comes to race, you need to select the box that you're most comfortable with. And so if you don't feel like you self-identify as white when it comes to race, then you can go down to the other, check other, and then put the nationality that you are comfortable with, your ancestry. How do you identify? For example, for me, I did the census about a week or so ago on National Muslim Census Day on April 3rd, and I put other, and then I put in my box Yemeni because that's my, ancestry. So that's really important, because what we want is, we don't only want to be counted, we want to be counted accurately. We want to know how many, Arabs there are, how many people from Yemen there are, how many people, that, come from Muslim majority countries, for example. So that's really important. We certainly all recognize, I think the slogan here for the city, Brother Badr, you can correct me, it's your community, your voice, correct? I think, Brother Badr, are you frozen?
I think he is.
You are? Okay. That's fine. Maybe we'll get him back in a couple of seconds.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Your community, your voice. That's what New York City is telling us is what's at stake. And Sister Fatima was explaining to us basically how representation works. In this country, there are 435 congressmen and women in the House of Representatives. And the way those 435 representatives are distributed around the country is based on the census. So if we don't respond to the census, we will end up losing individuals in the House of Representatives. That means instead of having the 28 representatives we have now, we may only end up with 26, right? And so that's really important. Brother Badr, welcome back. I think we lost you for a second. I was just pulling you into the conversation that, the city's slogan is your community, your voice. I wanted you to talk a little bit about that self-responsibility that we have, as a community to do the census. But before you do that, can you tell us, how can we do the census? Do we have to go to a special place? How do we do it?
So there are three ways of doing it. One, which is the easiest and safest under the circumstances, which is doing it online. You could go to the website, my2020census.gov. It has more than 13 languages on the website. Arabic is one of them. So definitely, if you don't speak English and you're more comfortable with doing it in Arabic, you could definitely do that. The second option would be calling to do the census, which I will provide you the phone number in a few. They have more than 50 languages support there, where if you can't find your language online, you could just call in, they will help you do it. And the third and last option, which is the usual way of doing it, it's basically filling out the form. We already mailed it twice. The third form should be mailed out soon as a reminder for those who didn't get it. Now, I want to clarify that not every household will get the form. Usually, the way they do it is by their way of study, depending on the neighborhood. If it is a neighborhood that is considered one that has low or hard access to the internet, then they would mail it to that neighborhood. But if they're known for being tech savvy, then would be just a call or self-response option.
Let me ask this, how easy is it to go to the website, right? You said it's my2020census.gov.
Census.gov,
right?
yes.
So you go on the website. Sister Fatima, how hard is it to complete the census?
The census is, you could complete it under 10 minutes. It's very, very simple. And we say 10 minutes for the next 10 years. You could change your neighborhood for the next 10 years in under 10 minutes. And it's sort of a duty that we all have to each other to make sure that our communities are being funded in the way that we deserve. And it's honestly super easy, but I do understand that some people don't have internet access, and some people, my parents don't really know how to work a computer like I would. So do not be hesitant to call, to ask for help. Like we are here for everyone. We're, Badr and I are working to make sure that our communities are being heard. And so to everyone who doesn't feel comfortable going on the website, just give us a call and we'll guide you through the whole process, and it won't take long, I promise.
Now, there was a lot of fear associated early on with the census, right? About, is ICE going to use this information? I'm not a citizen, am I going to be at risk? Can one of you talk about, why that should not be a concern for our community as they're filling out the census?
Definitely. So with that one, I want to clarify that there is no citizenship question. Two, the census does not ask for your immigration status. It doesn't ask for your social security. It doesn't ask any of your private information. All it asks is your address, your name, and your date of birth. That's about it. And the main important point is that the information you provide to the Census Bureau is totally confidential. No other governmental or city agency can have access to this information. With Title 13 being in place, which is basically a law that protects your information, if someone tries to break that law, it is they will be fined up to $250,000 and be sentenced to prison for 5 years.
So it sounds like you're saying the census is pretty confidential. I know that's been a really important issue for us. We advocated a lot on that issue to make sure the census did not have a citizenship question. And so, what we found, and it's really important that everybody listens to this information, is that there is federal law that was passed after World War II, right? It was in response to the Japanese internment when the census info was misused, and the Congress said never again, and they passed a federal law that said that the Census Bureau was prohibited from sharing information with other federal agencies, right? So the only information that can come out of the census is going to be statistical information, right? Information that's made public to the whole world about, populations and, things that you're answering in terms of statistical issues. So that's really important. We want to make sure that everyone knows that the census is secure, it's confidential, and it's going to be illegal to share that information with other federal agencies. Now, one thing I want to know from you, Sister Fatima, is that let me ask both of you. Have you both finished the census already?
Definitely.
Sister Fatima, has you and your
Yes.
family done the census? Great. All right. I didn't want to put you guys in a tough position here, but I'm glad you guys have finished it. What do we do in situations where, let me ask this. Sister Fatima, you can take the lead on this. Who should be counted in your household?
So everyone should be counted. Even if you're renting out your basement, even if you're not supposed to be renting out your basement, your uncle who lives there 9 out of the 12 months of the year, count him, count your in-laws if they're living with you, count everyone except your pets, count every single person that lives in your house and that you consider to be someone, who stays there for a period of time. And even if you're not sure, just count them. It's always better to just count the person than not count the person, not have them represented. So it does not matter. And if you have like two families, you could file separately. Like you could fill in the census separately for the two families. That's no issue at all. And we just want to really, really emphasize that we understand that living conditions in New York City especially are not, ideal. Sometimes you have 1-2 families living in one apartment, and sometimes you gotta, make ends meet. So there's no judgment. Just make sure everyone in your house is counted.
And to add to that, that information will not go to your landlord, so you won't have an issue with that at all. Because I know with us Arabic families, most of the time we have more people living in the house than what's on paper, which is totally okay. We understand how it is, but we just want to clarify that that information is not going to be handed to anyone else beside the Census Bureau. So if you provide the right information, you will not be deemed or punished for that.
Okay. So, right. No, I think that's an excellent way to put it. If your landlord thinks you have 2 people living in the house, but in reality, you have 6, as of April 1st, 2020, as long as those 6 people are living with you on April 1st, 2020, and they're breathing and they're made of human DNA, they all need to be counted in the census, right? All 6 of them. because it's important. If you leave one person out, even if it's a baby that was born on March 30th, 2020, that baby counts. He counts. He's alive as of April 1st. He has to count. You leave any one of those individuals out, you're costing anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a year. Now multiply that by 10, right? The city is missing out on that individual for $25,000 probably over 10 years. So it's really important that those individuals get counted. Now, we talked about the race card, how that gets answered. There's a lot of questions sometimes about, what happens if I don't respond myself, right? There's a self-response that you get to do it on your own. And if you do it, you're done, right? What happens if they don't do it?
The Census Bureau will do what nobody likes to, see. They will send people to knock on your doors. And I know many of us don't like that, especially as Arabs. We do not open the doors to strangers, especially our mothers and grandmothers. Most of the time they don't speak that language. So it just makes it more difficult for the Census Bureau to count us. And it makes it uncomfortable for our family members, like my mom or my grandmother. They wouldn't want to be bothered by door knockers, every once in a while. And mind you, the Census Bureau sends these people 6 times, so it's not once or twice, 6 different times. So if you don't want to be bothered, just do it online or call in and get it over with.
And also, if you are able and you do have access, I think it's really important to recognize that we are living in very strange, peculiar times with COVID-19 and this pandemic. So the less enumerators we have to send to houses, the better it is for our public health safety. And so we're urging everyone to fill it out on their own so that we don't have, too many enumerators roaming the streets trying to get people to fill out the census. And just remember, you're doing this for yourself and your community and 10 years ahead. And so I hope everyone takes that as a personal responsibility to themselves and to their neighbors as well.
Absolutely. I want to go back to 2010. New York didn't do a very good job. We had a self-response rate of 62% when the national average was 76%. It means we were 14% below the average. And I know I've never heard a mayor or a governor or anybody here in New York City call New York City average or below average, right? We're the #1 city in the world. And I think we need to act like it when it comes to the census. I can tell you right now, the national self-response rate as of today is 49%, okay? The self-response rate here in New York right now is 42%. So once again, we are below average and we got to do better. Now, Sister Fatima, you mentioned COVID, very important. Those enumerators, they're meant to go out and knock on your doors. COVID has kind of changed that. We have a stay-at-home order, right? We have social distancing in place. Now, earlier today, I think there was an announcement from the census about how those enumerators are going to work. Can you talk about that?
I do know that the deadline has extended. I think if Badr can correct me if I'm wrong, to October.
October 31st.
October 31st. But so we have to wait. We're sort of like waiting it out to see how COVID really is going to play out and when it's really safe to send these people. Sorry, that's my computer. To send these people out to knock on doors. And so if you don't want anyone knocking on your door, fill it out online. And really, truly, like, as you know, like we're all at home trying to like minimize, gatherings, crowds, and we just really want to make it really known and clear that when you fill it out online, no one's going to come knock on your door and no one's going to be out there. Allahu A'lam, God knows when this pandemic is going to end. And so we have a lot riding on everybody just taking their own initiative and filling it out on their own.
Absolutely. Look, I'm on the boat, right? I mean, I'm part of the camp that does not want somebody knocking on my door. Number one, I come from a household where you get nervous if a random person knocks on your door. why are they here, right? So I would tell all my Muslim brothers and sisters, everybody out there, if you don't want these random knocks to be at your door, if you don't want to frighten your parents, right? If you don't want to get worried about, oh my God, who is it on the other side of the door? I want you to go on your laptop right now and type in my2020census.gov. Take 10 minutes so we can all benefit for the next 10 years. That's really important.
I want to also provide the phone number for the Arabic to call in.
Mhm.
It's 844-416-2020. Again, 844-416-2020. So let's say if you don't have internet access, or you have an issue, or you know someone who doesn't have internet access, just have them call. They have many Arabic speakers. They'll help them fill it out.
Now, if somebody is watching this and they have questions, can they contact one of you or the mayor's office? How can they get help from the city?
Definitely. Well, they can definitely reach out to me via Facebook, or should I provide my phone number?
You provide whatever you're comfortable with.
I have a work phone, so I don't mind sharing it. 646-934-0248. Again, 646-934-0248. And I just please ask you not to, call midnight or something, during work hours, 9 to 5. That's about it, please.
All right. I'll call it midnight, 11:59 maybe. All right. Sister Fatima?
I just wanted to add, so if anyone who's watching is, of the younger generation, college students, high school students, and you can fill out the census, do that. Like, don't wait for your parents to do that. If you can do it on their behalf. That is 100% okay. And like, our parents have a lot, they're juggling a lot right now. They're homeschool teachers and trying to keep the houses together. So if you could do it, please do. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'll just provide my work email, Mohammed, Mohammed at census.nyc.gov. You could just send me an email and I'd be glad to help.
All right, great. Let me, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
I wanted to clarify with the website. I know I have received a lot of questions about this, which is the code. Like I mentioned, not everyone will get a form to their house, so they won't get the code that the website will ask. But right under the code, it says if you don't have the code, click here. They will just have you do it by your address, fill out your address, and you just move on from there.
That's really important. So if you didn't receive a letter from the census, or if you threw it away, or if you lost it, it's okay. You don't need that letter in order to fill out the census. Like Brother Badr just mentioned, all you got to do is go to my2020census.gov, and right there where it says enter your code, there's going to be a little link where you click on it, and then you just go put in your address, you verify your address, and then you go to the household questions, and you can finish it in under 10 minutes. I got to be honest, 10 minutes? I did it in under 5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some people have big families, and that's what we just said 10 minutes.
But if you're quick, you can race.
And this is
definitely do it in 2 minutes, to be honest.
Yeah. What I would do.
And this.
Go ahead. Sister,
sorry. This is a perfect time to just remind all the viewers that كان الله في عون العبد ما كان العبد في عون أخيه. So Allah will aid you if you aid your neighbor, and it's really a really crucial time to show solidarity. Not only are we staying home, but we're going to help each other out, fill out the census, remind each other in your group chats, in your friend groups, just a reminder like, hey everyone, fill out the census, because as hard as we're working to reach everyone, it's become extremely difficult, to do everything through virtually and try to reach out to everyone. And so if every person who watches this, even if we have only 5 viewers, if you reach out to each of your friends and let them know, you'd be doing your entire community a huge service.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. So we're running low on time. This will be the last question for both of you. As closing remarks, why are you doing this work?
Definitely for many reasons. One, for myself, I personally, when I was in school, I came here in 9th grade, by the way. I started high school here. When I was in 9th grade, I didn't get the resources I needed as a student. So ESL wasn't provided in my school. So that's one. I was already put at a disadvantage. Two, I was never provided translations when it came to exams and regions and things in that matter. Meanwhile, other languages were given the support they needed. So I didn't feel like I was represented nor accepted in that school, because I was looked at as the norm and as outside of the norm, and I didn't fit in. So for that reason, after I got to where I am and I studied politics and I saw how the operation happens, I realized that our communities are actually at a disadvantage politically and at a disadvantage when it comes to resources. And I felt the need to actually step up and try to work on getting these resources. And I think the census is actually one of the major aspects to go about this issue.
Definitely, I think Badr hit it on the spot. It's not only merely an issue of representation, but it's also a moral responsibility, I feel, to not only represent my community, but make sure that they are being heard and that I could do whatever I can at this level, whether it's socially, politically, economically, to sort of alleviate these discrepancies in schools and hospitals and in every facet of life. So I know it may seem like I'm exaggerating and that I'm trying to just get people to fill it out, but it truly does come down to numbers. It truly does come down to funding and who has the most money and which communities are the biggest and which communities need to be heard so that that politician gets that vote. And the moment our communities mobilize and are heard, that's the moment we could really start to see change. And I hope that everyone takes this as a personal responsibility, like I said, to fill it out. And yeah, fill out the census.
That's a great message. And I thank both of you for the tremendous work that you're doing, for giving back to your communities, making sure that the Muslims, the Arabs in New York City are being counted. As closing remarks, I want to just say and remind everyone that's watching this that the census is not it's not something that's just happening and won't have an impact on your life. It will have a major impact on your life, and that impact will be an entire decade, right? We're talking about 3 major issues here. Funding at the tune of billions and billions of dollars every single year that comes back into our communities. So if we want the good schools, we want to be able to hire and pay these good teachers, if we want the hospitals, if we want good roads so our cars stop breaking down, we got to do the census so our city can get that funding. Number 2, our community, our voice, we want to be heard, we want to be represented, we have to be engaged, right? We have to make sure that we keep our voices heard, not just here in New York City and City Hall, but also in Washington, D.C., where our congressmen and women go. And so we have to make sure that we don't lose any seats in the House of Representatives. And lastly, I want to say, I don't think we touched on this very much, but the census is used by non-governmental agencies as well. I'll tell you this, CAIR-New York uses the census, right? When we are trying to decide where will our services go. We want to see where the community is, and that's where we're going to direct our services. Well, businesses do the exact same thing. If you've ever wondered, why won't this amazing store or this amazing business, why won't they open a place in my neighborhood? Well, they probably looked at the census and said, nah, we don't want to be here, right? Maybe there's not enough people here because not enough people filled out the census, right? So the census goes into our business decision-making all the time. Businesses use it. So it's really important for you to respond to that. And the thing is, for the first time ever, it's gotten a lot easier. You can do it online. My2020census.gov. My2020census.gov. And I'm going to say it again, just in case somebody's hard of hearing. My2020census.gov. If anybody knows me, they know I don't say anything 3 times. I barely say something twice, but that's how important it is. I'm going to say it a 4th time. My2020census.gov. If you haven't got it by now, I don't know what else to tell you. So go online, complete the census, make sure to count every single person who is living in your household as of April 1st, 2020, and make sure that we're counted, make sure that our voices are heard, and make sure that you're keeping social distancing, make sure that you're staying safe and healthy. We pray for both of you, Sister Fatima, and you as well, Brother Badr, and your families. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for the hard work that you're doing. And I want to thank you specifically for coming on today for our episode of CAIR Talk. Please have a good day and stay safe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.